There's a lot of sound, a lot of color, and a lot of energy at this annual event in the South American nation of Peru. But it's not just clowning around for the sake of clowning around. Peruvian Clown Day has a story behind it that's remembered every year in late May. There was once a performer here named Tony Parejil. In the 1970s and 80s, he was known as the clown of the poor because his low-cost or no-cost circus was open to people who otherwise couldn't afford to go. That made Parejil very popular in the capital of Lima, but he was reportedly alone when he died on May 25, 1987. So every year at this time, many of the nation's clowns come together to honor Parejil, whom many Peruvians reportedly still remember. The event also has the goal of gaining government support for the performance art of clowning. The concept of media literacy plays into our next story on The World from A to Z. I'm Carl Azuz. Welcome to the show. When you're looking for credible information, a good starting point is a credible source, a news show or periodic magazine you're familiar with, an online paper from an organization you've heard of, a traditional paper from a local publisher. And it's good to have more than one source because different outlets can bring different perspectives on the same event. You want to be cautious with social media because anyone can say anything at any time online. And telling the difference between true and false is getting harder thanks to the advancement of artificial intelligence that can very realistically alter what someone appears to say. In the nation of China, whose communist government controls the media, it could benefit from AI misinformation even if it doesn't create it.
我真的很羡慕你们中国人，因为中国是全世界最安全的国家，
在中国才能睡个安稳觉。
On Chinese social media, what you see
I am Chinese
may not be what you get.
This is so creepy.
Olga Loic is a student at the University of Pennsylvania. She claims in this video on her YouTube channel, someone cloned her image in China and is peddling products and propaganda with AI-generated deepfakes of her.
The narratives my clones were voicing sounded like blatant propaganda.
Deepfakes designed to build a narrative of alliance and admiration between China and Russia, largely untouched by the government's heavy-handed censors. CNN cannot independently verify the videos, which have now been taken down, but not before Loic says they racked up thousands of views.
Here, she already has 140,000 fans, and she has a ton of videos with my face, where she likes saying how much she likes Russia and how much Russia needs Chinese economic support.
As a Ukrainian, this has obviously been infuriating for me.
How this happened? Loic says she has no idea. Artificial intelligence is advancing so quickly, experts say you need AI detection software just to identify some deepfakes.
A general kind of undermining of a source of truth.
Amplifying the power of disinformation, and not just in Chinese.
Staged by the Filipino side.
Chinese state media is using AI-enhanced videos on TikTok, altering the reporter's voice and face. A disclosure on screen for just a few seconds, easy to miss.
Under China's jurisdiction.
The video's pushing Beijing's narrative on the South China Sea.
I think China has found a more cost-effective way to get its message across.
Turning today's digital landscape into a battleground for truth, where seeing is no longer believing. Will Ripley, Taipei.
Word of knowledge. Which of these island locations is the only one that's an independent country? Tahiti, Papua New Guinea, St. Croix, Sicily. It shares a border with part of Indonesia and is about 100 miles from the Australian mainland, but Papua New Guinea is an independent nation.
The CIA World Factbook describes its geography as harsh. It's mostly mountains, it has numerous active volcanoes, it's located on the Pacific Ring of Fire, so it's prone to earthquakes and landslides. And a particularly devastating one struck Papua New Guinea late last week. Part of a mountainside made of limestone sheared away and buried a village beneath it. Government officials there say as many as 2,000 people might have been killed, and thousands of others may need to be evacuated because the ground is still unstable. Aid in the form of money and supplies is on the way from around the world. on this date in world history. A maritime disaster occurred on May 29th in 1914. In the midst of a dense fog on Canada's St. Lawrence River, a Norwegian coal ship accidentally rammed a passenger ship named the Empress of Ireland. Though the Empress had plenty of lifeboats aboard, the ship sank in just 14 minutes, too little time for them to do much good. Of the 1,477 people on board, 1,012 lost their lives. This was the date in 1953 when history was made on Mount Everest. New Zealand mountaineer Edmund Hillary and Sherpa Tenzing Norgay of Nepal became the first two people known to stand on the highest place on Earth. They spent 15 minutes atop Mount Everest before starting their way back down. And May 29th was when a space shuttle docked with the International Space Station for the first time. The shuttle was Discovery, the year was 1999, and the mission was to bring supplies, parts, and research materials to the ISS. In a broadcasting history class I took in college, one thing I loved was the old school newsreel accent, the one I cheesily imitate when saying, "on this date in world history." Turns out that accent was totally made up. A phonetician named William Tilley invented what some called good American speech, and the rest, as we say, is history.
The 45,000-ton Missouri goes down the ways months ahead of schedule.
Most Americans didn't actually speak like this. That is, none of them talked that way naturally.
Selecting to try for their wings.
The iconic radio announcer sound is called the transatlantic accent, or mid-Atlantic accent, and it's completely manufactured. Oddly enough, we have an Australian to thank for the accent. He was living in New York in the early 1900s and created it to blend the proper British accent and the standard American accent. America and Britain are separated by the Atlantic Ocean, so mid-Atlantic, middle of two accents, it kind of makes sense. The accent was seen as the posh way to speak and was taught in boarding schools, catching on with the American elites, such as the Roosevelts.
I, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
Eventually, it made its way to the silver screen. Hollywood trained the accent into its actors and actresses, presenting the industry as more prestigious. Radio announcers also picked up on the accent, wanting to cash in on its linguistic prestige. Politicians, sports announcers, news personalities, actors, just about every piece of media at the time had the accent. So if you thought that's how all Americans talked back then, you're not alone. It really does seem like it. But the accent didn't last long. After World War II, it fell out of vogue and schools stopped teaching it. Hollywood held on the longest, but by the 1960s, it had pretty much disappeared. It still lives on, though, in those old movies and famous speeches.
You have everything that it takes to make a lovely woman except the one essential, an understanding heart. And without that, you might just as well be made of bronze.
We see your schools coming in from the Request a Shoutout link at worldatozorg, also on our YouTube site. Today we're stopping by Mrs. Burns' class. Bachman Middle School is with us from Farmington, Minnesota. Let's go Tigers. From the Stark County Learning Center in Ohio, big hello to Mr. Jenkins' class. Thank you for watching from North Canton. And from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, happy to see everyone in Mr. Salomon's class. Universal Auden Reed Charter High School is awesome like Fridays. Finally, an event that's been rolling in England for hundreds of years, though it's not known exactly how the Cooper's Hill cheese roll got started. And that might be because of how unusual the event is. First goes the cheese, then go the chasers, and the winner takes home the 7-pound double Gloucester, plus pain and bragging rights. Is this a regular thing? Yes, it's annual and attracts thousands of participants and observers from around the world. Is it dangerous? Yes, injuries from willingly flinging your body down a steep hillside are common. Is it fun? Said one of the winners, England is mad. I love it. He Gloucester sure got that right. Maybe an American doesn't know Monterey Jack until he takes some time provolone and gets Limburger enough to Asia go for Roquefort, row mano a mano like a monsterella, havarting a funtina, good old time chasing queso while facing the feta of El Emmental Marscapane. I'm Carl Azuz, finding it pretty easy being cheesy, and I hope you'll join Measy on The World from A to ZZ on Thursday.